It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
We are going to get into the absolute worst take I've ever had today on the podcast at the end. I'm just going to warn you right now. I know it. I know it. But this is a podcast that is about my actual feelings. I'm not going to just sit around and beat around the bush and say the things you want to hear and act like everybody else. I'm just going to give it to you, shoot you straight with my real thoughts. And so we can get into the worst take. I'm assuming it's going to be the worst take I've ever had and make people mad. That's at the end, though. Let's try to make people happy before that. What a weekend it was. What a weekend it was. Oh, my. We're going to talk about some Disney stuff. We're going to talk about animated movies today. Deal with it. We talked about animated movies on Friday, and I gave you my top 5 animated Disney movies since Monsters, Inc. came out in my adult life, and people had a lot to say about it. And this was all leading up to the fact Inside Out 2 came out this weekend. I'm trying to figure out what order I want to talk about this in. Just a heads up, Inside Out 2 dominated the weekend and was a huge movie in terms of just movies. So we'll get you caught up on what that was. I went to Inside Out 2 this weekend. More on that coming up. Inside Out 2 was on my list of movies. That was a top 5 movie since Monsters, Inc. came out. But here's a couple things that I learned this weekend about the movie since 2001 in the animated Disney world. And a lot of this came from Instagram, TikTok, some text messages, a Marco Polo from Jeremy. Again, if you do not have Marco Polo, what are you doing? I probably don't stay in touch with you as much as I should if you don't have Marco Polo. If you have Marco Polo, I'm in your ear, I'm in your life, I'm bothering you all the time. I just love it. I love it so much. So anyhow, Jeremy came in, I'll give him credit right off the bat, and he was in the masses that were fighting for Coco. So I want to address Coco first. Coco was not in my top 5. And I want to start with this because it was in my top 5 when I wrote down the list. But I wanted to make sure my list was fair for everyone. And Coco and I have a strange relationship because Coco, I've always felt I like because it's based on Latin America. And that's where I grew up. And so I've never felt fair in saying Coco is an amazing movie because a couple reasons. My family doesn't love it. So there's barometer number 1. My kids and some of the cousins, if they don't like the movie, and I do, then that must mean there's something for me that's going on. And so I've always assumed with Coco, I love the music because it's Latin. I love the setting because it's Latin. You know, heavy Spanish influence in the movie. And so I've always personally loved Coco, but I just thought I'm giving it more credit than it's due because of my history and how I grew up and where I grew up. But there was a lot of Coco supporters out there, I realized. And that made me excited. That fired me up a little bit. I was talking to Jeremy. I was telling him when Coco came out, that song Remember Me and Un Poco Loco, I played those a lot. We played those a lot. Just as me, a human being, without any influence from Olivia Huck, none of that. Just me as a human. I loved those. Again, Un Poco Loco. It's Espanol. And so I loved that. So Coco wasn't in my top 5. I listened to a lot of people tell me it should be. That made me excited. The number 1 movie, though, that people had problems with in my top 5 list was, wait for it, Moana. People did not like where I had slotted Moana. Moana, I had it the number 5 movie since Monsters, Inc. Inside Out, I had it number 4. Number 3, I had Encanto. Number 2 was Frozen. Number 1 was Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3, everyone was mad about that being number 1, which is fair. I love the Toy Story franchise, and so it got the nod. I might have got the nod unfairly because of the history, but I also think the ending of Toy Story 3 is awesome. Anyways, Moana got the most love for being slotted incorrectly. Should have been higher on the list. Maybe number 1. People were about it being number 1 over Frozen, like way better than Frozen. Let me see. Let me see if I can read some of these for you. Moana should have been higher. Still one of the most streamed movies to this day. Daryl, that's from Daryl. Daryl, I'm not going to argue it. Moana's great. It just doesn't all the way click for me. I don't know why that is. We love it. We've watched it a ton. The ones above it, though, we've watched more. Let me read some of the things, though, that came through that stunk. Sam Waker 6 on TikTok. WALL-E and Ratatouille destroy all these. WALL-E is so bad. Well, for you WALL-E fans, you need to understand. It's real bad. It doesn't deserve to be in a top 5 list. You're Cocoing WALL-E if it's in, maybe you had a history where you were a robot or you were raised by robots, and so you have this, or you were raised on another planet, so you have this bond to it, like me and Coco. But I'm smart enough to know, I can't just be totally biased. I'm trying to be a little unbiased here and look at these movies so that it's for everyone. If you have WALL-E in there, get out of here. That movie stinks booty cheeks. Oh my golly. Austin said all the Toy Stories after 2 went so downhill. I do agree 4 was stinky. I loved 3. Absolutely love 3. Yum Yum said Moana is underrated. Moana is greater than Frozen. Lowy 2018 said this list brought to you by people without kids. Okay, tough one considering my kids pretty much helped me make that list. F is for fun. No Coco. That's what I'm saying, right? She's Losey said this. I can't respect this list without Up. Really? So Up has the saddest part of any movie that I've ever seen. The saddest. Well, I've talked about this in the podcast. The old man opening up the book and the wife has actually filled it in with their adventure. It's the saddest thing in any movie. I will cry every time I watch it. But that can't carry a movie to the top 5 because after that, the movie's not good. The movie's not good. Once they get to like that weird spot where they're running around the caves and what I didn't even like. I've seen it a couple times and I don't even care about that. Like once the guy opens the book, from that point on, that movie is trash. That doesn't the second half of that movie is not great. Up is a sad movie. It's not a great movie. It especially doesn't rival the list of movies that I gave you that have a story that's great the whole way through. And Up is not better than Moana. Up is not better than Inside Out. Up is not better than Frozen. Up's not better than, I'm going through them right now. Toy Story 3. And Encanto, there was a couple people who had never seen Encanto and were wondering why it's on the list. How have you never seen Encanto? Encanto had a moment where I was putting together the top 5 where it was number 1. Golly gee, that movie is so stinking good. I will say the reason why it didn't, I've never really, as a 42-year-old, I'm willing to admit this. I've never understood what Moana is, or what Maribel, is that her name? Maribel, is that her? Anyways, the main character, I've never understood what her power is. Bringing the family together, it stinks. Her power stinks. And so I've never quite understand that all these, one guy gets to talk to animals. Da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, ba-ma-ma-ma-ma. I'm trying to go through it. Yeah, Luisa, Isabella, they've got, strength, beauty, all these great powers. And then they're like, Mirabel, what's your power? Apparently bringing the family together. And then at the end, they're like, but it's such a great power. Well, it worked for one thing, but now Luisa's still really strong. And you've wasted your power. And Antonio can talk to animals. So, yeah, that's a tough sell for me. So that was the one thing that brought Encanto down. I didn't think they landed the ship very well. Okay, but let's talk about Inside Out. Because I loved Inside Out, the first movie. It's funny, I haven't listened to it yet, but a podcast I love that my guy, let's just go Spokecast, Brennan Spokecast, which, hey, I haven't checked in with him for a while. Brennan, are you still out there? Hello? Hi. He had tipped me off to this podcast, The Wizard and Bruiser, and I saw today their episode is about Inside Out. The first movie might be about the second movie as well, maybe just the franchise. I'm real excited to listen to it because I think the Inside Out franchise is spectacular. I think it's obviously relatable to anyone, right? Up, if you're a little kid and it's like, oh yeah, let me relate to this old man whose wife died. WALL-E, let me relate to this robot. Inside Out, it's like, oh, let me relate to everyone who's going through changes in their emotions. Extremely relatable. Toy Story 3, I'll take a shot at my number 1. Let me relate to toys coming alive. Inside Out is the most relatable of all of the Disney, of all of these movies that I've talked about. And so I've always respected that about Inside Out. The music's good. And so Inside Out 2 comes out this weekend. We went to it. Inside Out 2 delivered this number to the box office. $155 million opening weekend, $295 million globally. Monster movie for Pixar because Lightyear stinks. That was a terrible movie. They lost all their money on it. They needed a home run. They got a home run. So it's number 2 behind. It is, okay, what animated movie is number 1? This is a fun little game for you to play right now. One that did not make my list of top 5. A movie that I really like. Mid-2000s, we keep giving you hints, is a guy from Spokane, a voice for one of the characters. Red suits. All right, we know it now. Incredibles 2 is the number 1. $182.7 million for Incredibles 2. Previously to this weekend, because Inside Out 2 is now the number 2, previously it was the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which my son is, I think, watching right now at his grandmother's house. $146 million. And then Finding Dory is now number 4, was number 3, 135. Frozen 2, $130 million at number 5 now. Okay, so those are your top 5 in terms of top animated domestic opening weekend. So monster movie for Inside Out 2, and we went to it Friday night. So my daughter loves Inside Out. My son loves Inside Out. We are a big Inside Out family. And here is my review. First 25 minutes are money. That's what I got to see. I watched 25 minutes of Inside Out 2, and that was when my son said, "Hey, Dad, as much as I'm liking Inside Out 2, I need to sprint around this movie theater. I've got to do it. I would love to watch this movie. I'd love to sit here and enjoy it and learn about, is Joy going to get back? I mean, Joy, spoiler, 25 minutes, early spoiler, Joy is out. Joy is out. Can she figure out how to get back? Can they come back and take over from anxiety? Are they going to be able to do it? I have no idea. Hopefully. My daughter wouldn't tell me a doggone thing about the movie when we left. Hey, what happened at the end of the movie? Silence. Well, all she wanted to talk about was how she wanted to play hide and go seek. And I said, look, I'll play hide and go seek with you all day the next day if you can tell me what happened in Inside Out 2. No chance. No chance, Lance. So I got to wait till it comes out, see what happens. When I can stream it on Disney Plus, I'll stream it and we'll see what happens with Inside Out 2. But the first 25 minutes were money. Really good. Very strange because it's noticeable. Bill Hader was the voice of Fear in the first movie. He's not on this one. And I looked up why. Allegedly, this is one of the reports, Amy Poehler, who is the voice of Joy, got $5 million to do Joy, the lead, and then everyone else was offered $100,000. That's a bit of a difference. And Bill Hader is not a $100,000 guy. So he was not there as the voice of Fear, which was funny because Fear didn't talk a whole lot in the part of the movie that I saw, rightfully so. Anyhow, $155 million big opening weekend for Inside Out 2. I love the first 25 minutes. My wife did say it was great. I said, what happened? Nothing from her either. I don't think my wife actually watched it. My wife is not a movie person. She's just 9 months pregnant, so she couldn't chase Huck around. So it was the worst possible situation because I love movies, and I love these kind of movies. And if it had been any other time, my wife would have gladly taken Huck and ran around because she hates movies also. So those two could have ran around, and I could have stayed in the theater and cried about the movie with Olivia. Instead, we had a mix-up of parents, all because Baby Woods. So he's already 0 for 1 in my book. Come on, Woods. Figure it out. Big opening weekend for Inside Out 2. If you want to tell me what happened in it, please message me. Let me know. I would love to know. Are we ready to get into the worst take of all time? Now that we've talked about this, because this is bad. And this is real, right? This podcast is real. I'm hoping we don't lose subscribers. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the podcast, helped support it over on Patreon. Patreon.com/Sean Widmer podcast. Had a Saturday podcast for the Patreon people come up this week. Hopefully it led to you getting to do some fun deep diving into your life. But we looked back at the year I graduated, 2000, and broke it down. Is it the best year to graduate? Is it? We're going to read some replies to that. And if you missed it, if you become a Patreon subscriber, you get access to all of the weekend podcasts with guests, with just me. And they're more casual, laid back, me just chit-chatting, more long form. And so again, you can go check that out. Thank you to the people who did respond to that. And if you are someone who would like to support the podcast, it means a lot to me. Keeps the lights on, as they say on other podcasts. Mother's Day and Father's Day stink. There you go. There you go. Mother's Day and Father's Day are two of the stupidest days you could have to celebrate. They're so dumb. They're so trash. And now I'm going to get in trouble from my wife. I'm going to get in trouble from my family, my in-laws, like everyone. This is not going to be received well. I understand this. But they're dumb. They're dumb holidays. And I wanted to say why. Because yesterday was Father's Day. And it was nice, right? We had a very fun get-together last night at my aunt's house. So much fun being around the family. Major bummer because there was a pool there. Huck's got this swimmer's ear infection, so he couldn't swim because we're working on getting his ear fixed up. Who knows what the future of swimming is going to hold for him if he's got bad ears. Oh, I feel so bad for the guy. So it was 90,000 degrees. That's not an exaggeration. Might even be an understatement. And everyone's swimming except for Huck. I felt so bad. He wanted to be in the pool so bad, but couldn't do it. Great family get together. Father's Day, U.S. Open, all that stuff. I think it's a dumb day. And here is why I think it's a dumb day. I decided with my wife to be a dad. We decided we wanted to be parents. We decided we wanted to have kids. This is a decision we made. I don't think there should be a day where we are celebrating the exclusive group of people who decided to be parents. Because I think it needs to be more than just one day. I don't think there needs to be a Father's Day or a Mother's Day to say, look, hey, 365 days, you killed it. So we're going to take one day and be like, let's focus on them. I don't know. I don't like it. I think this needs to be a more in your family, not this big like, look at me, I'm a dad, look at me, I'm a mom, look at me. Like everyone text me today and say that you're killing it. Like it's a family thing. Maybe needs to stay in the doors of the family. My opinion, again, not a popular one. And it needs to be more often. I would be really mad if the only time I ever had my kids make my wife a card and draw her something and say, I love you. If they only did that once a year, I'm dropping the ball as a dad. Okay? If I'm only telling my mom and dad once a year, hey, you're killing it. And I need this. And not only that, I need it to be a day that is on the calendar to remind me, oh man, I really need to make sure I tell my mom and dad I love them. I really need to maybe send my dad a card. I need to maybe, do something special for him. And then I have to be reminded about it on a calendar. I just don't think that's the play. So this is where I'm coming from with it. I think it needs to be more often. And I think I need to make sure my kids are reminding my wife that she's crushing it on a more regular basis. And if it's the middle of September, if it's the middle of October, oh, it's December 26th. Like we need to make sure that mom knows that it's happening. I need to make sure my mom, my dad know they're killing it all the time. I need to make sure they know that I appreciated them and everything they've done for me, everything they continue to do for me, but everything they did for me growing up. I need to make sure they know I appreciate that more than just on a day where everyone's posting a picture with their dad. And so I think these days are kind of lame. I think they're cop-out days. I think they're look at me Louie days. I don't love them. I'm a dad. So I loved yesterday. I loved getting a gift that was, for me, and a great card from a very, very nice card from my wife, a sweet drawing from my daughter, a cool card from my son that he stuck dinosaur stickers all over a piece of paper. I loved it. It felt great. But my wife does a good job also other days doing that. And I like that. And, maybe this is something, I don't know. Again, I love it that I know my wife in the middle of November will look at me at some point and go, look, you seem tired. I know you've been with the kids a lot. You need a day. And she'll give me a day. I know I'll do the same for her. Look, you've been with the kids a lot. You've been working a lot. You've been killing it. You've been supporting the family. You're a great mom. Get out of here. Go do whatever girly thing you need to get done. Go get some wine with the girls. Go to the spa. Get yourself a massage. Take yourself out. Spend the night in a hotel that's quiet. And we try to do that throughout the year. And so I was all mixed emotions yesterday. My fourth Father's Day into the game. Terrible take. Terrible take. I know it is a terrible take, but it had been on my mind. This podcast is my journal. And so you can come at me. This is a great time for you to utilize the comments. Sean'sLife.com. If you're on Spotify on this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, pile on. Pile on why I'm an idiot. Pile on why I'm wrong. Pile on how terrible I am. But that's just my thoughts on it. I think it needs to be more than just one day. I don't like that there's one day set out that is supposed to tip off people to remembering that their parents or your parents exist, and you need to reach out to them and celebrate them. Celebrate them more. Take the day away and celebrate them more. And give them more than one day. Remind them that they did a great job. And also, we chose parents for the most part, the vast majority of people with kids chose to be parents. I understand that's not the case throughout the board. I get that, right? There's a lot of situations where that's not the case. I chose to do it. This is my decision. And so I don't know, man. I just don't love that I make a decision that then there has to be a day where people feel like they need to get me a card. Okay. There you go. Thank you for subscribing to the podcast. Enjoy hitting the unsubscribe button. Oh no. And now my button, I was going to just transition right into Kelly's What Are You Into? And now the button's not working because my own computer gave up. Like, even my computer stopped listening. It was like, yeah, dude, you're so dumb. I'm not even listening to you anymore.
Kelly's What Are You Into?
Oh, Woods Widmer on his way here. Could be any day. Scheduled for early July. I don't know, he's scheduled. Is a baby scheduled? The rumor is early July, but we're at the point where it could be any moment. And it was pointed out, it came to our attention. Sorry, I'm rattled this weekend because I'm already regretting being open. But it was pointed out to me this weekend that my son, Woods, is being born in the year of the dragon. Let's go, Woodsy boy! Let's go, Woodsy boy. The year of the dragon. Not only the year of the dragon. Now, if you know me, you know that my number one love in life is, I'm pointing on YouTube, that right there, basketball. Blazers right there. Damian Lillard right there. Basketball is my number one love in life. Right behind it, I love my Dungeons and Dragons. I love it. I love my tabletop role-playing games. I love my mini games, my BattleTechs, my Warhammer 40Ks. I love that stuff. I love that high fantasy world. And so I love Dungeons and Dragons. So when I found out my son's born Year of the Dragon, I'm like, well, look, man, this is the easiest thing in the world for me. You're my dragon guy. You are going to be my nerd son. People tell you don't try to force your kids to do certain things. Too bad, Woods. Didn't work out that way for you, buddy. You can some point go to a therapist and they'll be like, what's the matter? Mom, my dad made me love Dungeons and Dragons as a kid and he didn't give me any other options. And then, that's between you and your therapist, and sorry that it made you pay for it and all that stuff. But, look, where am I sitting right now? These are books for Travis's campaign. If you're watching on YouTube. I was reading through an old Dungeons and Dragons player's handbook. Working on, there's one. I just got all my stuff right. I got all my stuff right here. There's player's handbook, new play, whatever. I love Dungeons and Dragons. My son's going to be born in the year of the dragon. And not only that, it is the year of the wood dragon. My son's name is Woods. It's the year of the wood dragon. If you are a video game person, if you're a D&D person, my son's going to be a Dragonborn. Now, he's not going to look like a Dragonborn, as the games and make it out to be. But hey, Skyrim people, you know what I'm talking about. So my son's going to be a Dragonborn. It's the year of the wood dragon. He has no choice. My wife got dodged a bullet, though, with one thing, because she themed the kids' rooms. And I told you my number one thing that I love in life is basketball. And my wife can thank her lucky stars. Wood's room is a basketball-themed room. Because if it had been anything else, I would have ripped all the stuff off the walls. I'd already went to Etsy and Amazon and all the places to order little trinkets. And I'd already planned out his entire room for dragons. It was just locked in. And I went into Wood's room, and it's all basketball-themed. And I thought, you have the one thing that trumps it on his walls. So, Woods, I'm excited for you, man. My Dragonborn, Year of the Dragon. The wood dragon, very excited. It is my Kelly's What Are You Into? If I wasn't already excited to meet my son and get him into this house, let's go all in. I hate Father's Day, Woods. I hate Mother's Day, and now everyone hates me for that. Let's read some comments, shall we? These probably will be our last comments we ever read in the podcast. Yvonne said this: I am a baby of 5, so I didn't get anything special. I had to share a room with my siblings. I was my dad's favorite. Daddy's girl tattoo to prove it. Yeah, the girls are... There's something about the girls. But Woods is coming in as my Dragonborn. So now, he has this entry into my heart that unfortunately my son Huck didn't have. Do love my man Huck though. Roberta said this: yes, I did listen twice. Oh, because the video didn't work at first. And Roberta is a YouTube watcher. Thank you. Had to wait for the YouTube so I could see Huck's sweet face and your beloved mug. Happy Flag Day. Missed Flag Day. Loved Flag Day. As a regular, the easiest way we found is to learn the server's name. So this is as a regular in a restaurant. Learn the server's name. When we had been going to a restaurant and one of the servers said, "You're here all the time. What's your names?" The Elmers CDA crew on Saturday knows us and we know them. It's a great time and helps make everyone feel seen. All right, I've got the Kennedy is the section we're trying to sit in at this place because we have a table we like. It's always Kennedy's section. So Kennedy. Kathy is, I think, the manager. I think that's her name. And then there's another girl whose name I don't know. But Kennedy, that's the section we're trying to sit in. So we've got one. We're trying to learn the names. Thank you, Roberta, for the messages. On Patreon, we had a couple people respond to the year they graduated, right? I was talking about over the weekend, if you probably didn't hear it if you're not a Patreon person, but explaining why 2000 was the best year to graduate. And we wrapped in a bunch of music and movies and video games. And Yvonne said this: look at the year 1986, the year I graduated. Great songs and movies. She's not a gamer, so I don't care about that. I know you do. But you got to know that I'm not a gamer. That's Andrew, her son. Sorry for Huck. I mentioned Huck's. I talked extensively about Huck's ear blowing up on the podcast Saturday. Yvonne said, sorry for Huck. Andrew ruptured his eardrum with a Q-tip when he was 8.5 years old. Just before summer, had to wear special earwax, formed earplugs so he could swim. He's had a hard time hearing out that ear. That's a bummer right there. So I looked up 1986 to see if it can rival 2000. And I got to say, Yvonne, 1986 is a great year. Great movies: Top Gun, Star Trek IV, Voyage Home, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Aliens. Some good ones. Crocodile Dundee. Did I say that already? Yeah, I think I did. Good movies, not as good as 2000s movies. The music, I'll say, I'm not an 80s music person, but I know these songs and they're good. That's what friends are for. Number one song. I mean, coming in with a little heavy hitter. You got Stevie Wonder's in that song. Lionel Richie is in this top 100 songs of the year. Whitney Houston. It's okay. It's okay. There's some songs in there that I like, that I've heard, that I recognize, like West End Girls was the 15th best song of the year that year. It's not as good as 2000. I mean, it's a good year, Yvonne. Ian had mentioned this over on Patreon. 05, the year I graduated, was poppin'. Weezer, Green Day, Snoop Dogg, and more. I mean, unfair to try to throw Weezer in at me, Ian, you dog. He said, Fair Us allows you 30 seconds total time of the copyrighted material. Okay, so I played some music on the podcast on Saturday, and so it doesn't look like I'm going to get sued. 2000 can't touch 2005 in movies. We had Star Wars, Harry Potter, Batman, King Kong. Video game-wise, Gran Turismo 4, Resident Evil 4, God of War, GTA San Andreas, Mario Kart, Metal Gear 3. Eternal Ring, in my opinion, was bad bottom. It was like a Wish.com Skyrim, best way I can describe it. I'm going to call it 2000 and 2005 are tough cookies. Okay, so 2005, movies are pretty good. Movies are pretty good. They're not as good, but they're pretty good. Chronicles of Narnia, the remake, is good. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, good. Star Wars Episode 3, pretty good. Pretty good. I want to get into a Star Wars podcast at some point this week. King Kong, I didn't love. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I did love. Madagascar is your best animated movie. That's not anything to hang your hat on. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I don't know if that was great. And it was not, the Batman movie that came out was Batman Begins, which is good, but not great. You did have Hitch. You did have a great comedy in 2005, Ian. The video games you mentioned, though, I mean, you have GTA San Andreas, dude. What am I going to do? You got one of my favorite games of all time. I can't really fight you on that. Musically, pretty decent year for you, 2005, Ian. Holla Back Girl, Gwen Stefani, We Belong Together was the song of the year. Mariah Carey, love that song. You've got 1-2 Step by Sierra, Russell Wilson's wife. Gold Digger, great song, Kanye and Jamie Foxx. Candy Shop, 50. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of 50 Cent songs on here that are great. You also have the Killers' Mr. Brightside, the number 16 song of the year. The music in 2005 is really good. Really good. Doggone it, you have that Weezer. You have Weezer. You've got Beverly Hills, one of the best Weezer songs. Look, man, I don't want to look into this anymore. I'm just going to say 2000 was the best year, and I'm just going to continue on my hot takes this podcast. Thank you for listening. I got to go.